Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about the mid-game and kind of some of the navigational struggles you're going to have and how to combat it, what things need to change about your account in order to get the most out of what's going on, because there's a lot of these just, changes that have come into the game that I think in many ways are good for the mid-game player, but I also think there's a lot of elements to it that have made your journey through Swago much more difficult than even when I was going through it. So we're going to talk about that. Let's please make sure we give a shout out to our channel members. And if you guys have not already, like to this channel, subscribe for more content like this. I really appreciate you guys. And again, channel members, you guys know the drill by this point. You guys are the best. I couldn't do it without you. And obviously I have the best channel members in the world because, well, I'm kind of biased that way, but I think that of you guys. Thank you again. Let's get in here. Let's talk about these challenges facing the mid-game player. All right, folks. So the first order of business here is Zetas and relics. And one of the biggest areas that this is cropping up that I'm seeing is a lot of the mid-game players are starting to build their counter fleets. You're building your Galactic Republic to counter the Executor. You're building the Empire fleet with Iden. You're building a First Order fleet, or you're trying to beef up your Executor, or you've got the General Grievous Malevolence. One of the hardest things you have to stomach at a certain point is the impact that the Zetas and relics have on your pilots. And one of the common mistakes that a player will make in the mid-game is they'll go ahead, they get Executor. They leave Beskar Armor Mando low gear or low relics and wonder why their team isn't performing as well. I had a channel member who got Piet, and he was like, how come my Executor isn't fast enough? And it boiled down to them not having the extra Zeta on him. And this goes to a lot of the pilots, Dengar, Bosk. There's some of these pilots where you might not have equipped all of their Zetas. General Grievous, if you're not using his team, there's no way you equipped those Zetas. But they significantly improve the performance of the Malevolence. So in the mid game, it's a really hard balance that you're going to have to strike, where you're going to have to recognize that, yes, I either need this Zeta for this fleet counter to work properly or for me to be consistent with it, or I need to do something else because I can't rely on it. And that doesn't just go for like your Executor, but think about these characters down here. Mace Windu with the Endurance. This is a very popular ship that players use to counter certain lineups of the Executor. If your Mace Windu isn't at high enough relics, has the mods and the Zetas, there's a potential that you're not going to win or you're not going to succeed. And the same would go for your Bad Batch with Marauder or the clone troopers you're going to use. If your gear, relics, mods aren't at the appropriate places, that counter gets significantly more challenging. Now, it might open up a two-shot, but there's also a potential that you just fail miserably because you don't have the damage. So what you have to do is recognize, if you're going to build the Marauder, if you're going to build Darth Vader or Iden or whoever you're going to build, you have to look at yourself kind of in the mirror and say, if I want this to do X, this is the level of care I need to give it. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I've really recommended a lot of players just go from farming Executor to a Leviathan to your Profundity, that you want to focus there, because while those counter fleets are really good, they normally take significantly more relic levels to have that level of consistency where these ships, relics make a difference, but not to the extent that they do when you're trying to counter something. So it's not a small investment to make, and I want to make sure that it's something that's a lot harder now, because counter fleets have kind of evolved over time. They were things that I was able to build much more slowly, invest in these characters a little bit more slowly. You guys are obviously doing it in a much faster pace where there's less overall gear available and Zetas. And that kind of goes into this next sort of, area that is a challenge. It's the gear time equation. And gear time equation is Fat Phil's way of saying, back in my day, it took me significantly longer to obtain gear, to obtain signal data, whatever else. It's a lot more accessible than it was 2-3 years ago. And because that stuff is more accessible, your account is progressing faster. Now, in a gear time equation, yeah, that's great. But what about mods? How are your mods looking comparative to what mine did when I was the same GP as you? How does your Zeta situation, your Omicron situation, credits, all of these other things? Gear time equation is in the best place possible in terms of it is faster to level up now, faster to get gear than ever before. But the downside of that as well isn't just those mods and Zetas, but think about all the other pieces that I've accumulated over the years when you talk about these carbonite circuit boards. Because I was having to do more work back in the day, like before double drop shards, right? When you were just double dropping shards, before that, you were having to farm nodes longer, which meant you were getting more of this random gear, which built up our relic hordes. So as a mid-game player, you're going to need to find the way to balance this kind of stuff. And that goes double for anybody who bought a light speed bundle, because you skipped a lot of that line that everybody else is still making their way through. So if that means you need to pay extra attention to mods and maybe you can't quite be as picky, you're not going to be able to look like me in the store and be like, oh, it's got speed, but none of the other stats I want, I can ignore it. You might not have that flexibility. If you are someone who has spent money and you are very short on mods, I am going to say this, free to play, stay with me. This pack right here for $5, bare minimum, you're going to get one mod with a speed secondary of the green color. And then more likely than not, you're going to get 5 other speed mods that will have varying stats on them, and you can pick and choose from there. But for $5, I would say that this is a pretty solid investment in terms of if you can get lucky, this is going to make a big difference, especially if you were purchasing the light speed bundles and you need mods. Like for, I know Old Man Logan, I was on Three Scoundrels last night, and Old Man had purchased this, and he's like, for me, he's like, it's kind of a gamble. He's in a position where he can whale on this stuff. For someone like even Egnards or myself, we're not really looking at this pack and thinking, yeah, that's worth it to us. Because for me to get a speed mod, like this one, if I got crit damage with 6 speed, if it doesn't give me offense percent on the secondary, I'm selling it anyways. So my needs are so different, but for a lot of you in the mid game, you just need speed. You need mods, and this is a great way to almost guarantee you're going to get some. And, getting some guaranteed speed secondaries is never a bad thing. So it sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about how hard it is to obtain mods and obtain the slicing materials, I think there is some value there. So I did want to throw that out. Now, the next thing that's happened a lot to players in the mid game, and it happened to me in certain instances, you get caught up in the moment with something. One example I'm going to use here is the Sith Assassin. For a lot of people who were playing the game, they got their Leviathan and they took their Sith Assassin to Relic 8 or Relic 9. They got caught up in the moment. They didn't recognize that, yes, that makes your mirror match easier, but it didn't change any of the other battles. Nothing else about that battle changed. They just Relic 9 Executor. They thought it was a good investment. And it's kind of ended up biting them in the butt a little bit, because these players with this Relic 8 and 9 here, it doesn't do anything anymore. You're not even, like, this is not even half the time, this isn't even a reinforcement that I'm using. I'm coming in and bringing Scimitar, right? You're bringing out your Maul first. So it's one of these unfortunate situations that if you got caught up in the moment and you did that Relic 8, you could say, oh, well, I got my use out of it then. But now it's useless, right? Where those of us who were able to abstain from that as long as possible now have that Relic 8 in our back pocket that we can spend on something else. But I fell into that trap with Piet, where I took him to Relic 9. I had a bad day of climbing and took him to Relic 9. Was it nice in the moment? Yeah. Looking back 3 years ago or whenever this ship came into the game, I'm still kind of torn about it. It's nice for TB, but I'd rather have that Relic 9 on my Lord Vader, I'd put it on him first. But even a character like Dark Trooper, there was a lot of hype around this character, and you had to build him up, and you had to relic him, and he had to be like Relic 8 or 9 for all the offense, and it's just like, no. You're sure, if you're trying to be Arnold and countering every galactic legend under the sun with this dude, which really, is just Lord Vader, like, you don't need that much offense on him. He's not fighting teams like that. You're okay. And then even, Hondo, I've got to throw Hondo on here because I took him to Relic 6 because I'm caught up in the moment of trying to battle Agnards and who is superior in territory battles. And Hondo was one I had at Relic 5, and I get caught up in the moment. I'm like, gotta do Hondo to Relic 6 now. Gotta at least get 2 more waves that my guild doesn't need, but I need it for my own personal satisfaction and to give him the middle finger. So there we are. But a few other examples, right? You've got the popular kids here. And it's funny, they're all dark side characters that I have listed out. It's kind of funny that way. But, like Bane, Starkiller, Malgus, Malikos, Maul. All of these are characters that players like to take to high relic levels. And they all benefit from them. But most of you in the game are not at a point where you even benefit from a Relic 7 on most of these guys. Right? The outer two, Bane and Maul, I could make a case for them being Relic 7. But really, Maul, only if you're throwing him with Lord Vader. If you're just going to throw him in some random Ufu team with Seer, no, just keep him Relic 5. Because he's not there to deal damage, he's there to let Malikos leech off of him and assist every single time. Bane, I'd argue Relic 7 is a good point for a lot of you in the mid game. He's a very valuable character. Obviously, extra relic levels help him, but it's not something that I feel you should be doing like all the time or right away. It's just not a... Most of you are not in a position where Relic 8 on your Bane will make a difference between a win or a loss in the vast majority of your Grand Arenas. So, I think you're better saving it and not getting caught up in the moment. Because in the mid game, if you spend a Relic 8, what if you needed that for Profundity or Leviathan or Executor? Or what if you're trying to go for GL Ahsoka and you've spent all these Relic 8 and 9 resources on these, on the characters that you have like right here? Sure, you look cool, it's really fun, but you didn't really help your account progress anywhere. You're just doing something that's going to benefit you when you're 13 million GP, but something that would benefit you when you're 8 million GP would be getting one of those ships. And finally, it's 6-dot mods. Now, this is a more interesting one to understand. What a lot of players make the mistake on is they place an overimportance on being fast. Speed is important to a degree. Speed is important to a degree. And what I mean by to a degree is you can't be super slow, right? You can't just like be a turtle where your team never takes a turn. You need to have some modicum of speed on all your characters, and obviously some need it more than others. But I've got my trench team here as an example. I have almost all 6-dot mods on this team. That has won me Grand Arenas. I've 100% won Grand Arenas because I guarantee players go in and they're like, okay, it's not too fast. But they're not able to get enough damage out there because I've got the 6-dot mods where I've got extra defense and health or protection, potency, offense, whatever it is, and I'm beating them. It's the same thing with a team like the Seer Junda squad here, right? I've got majority of 6-dot mods on these characters because, yes, Malikos is the one that you want him on for his offense, but if your Seer isn't healthy enough or your Fulcrum doesn't hit hard enough, those can be significant detractors from the performance of that team. And so if you're in the mid game, I need you to recognize that 6-dot mods play a very important role because speed is obviously important, but not like it used to be. I think speed has continued to lose value, not because you don't want it, but that there's more teams that counter things. Back in the day, everything was a mirror match, right? What was the best way to beat CLS? I'm just going to throw a mirror match. Without overkilling it, I'll probably mirror match it. What's the best way to beat Darth Revan? Oh, I'm going to mirror match it. What's the best way to do this? Oh, I'll probably just mirror match it. Like, mirror matches was everything. And so having the faster Darth Revan or Jedi Knight Revan or whoever else made a huge difference. Now there's so many different counters that exist. You just need to be fast enough that you can pull the counter off. But you'd rather have the health, the protection, the offense, the defense to ensure that you're going to win. So if I'm in the mid game, I'm telling you, yes, speed is nice, but don't worry about going blazing fast. Worry about having some of those 6-dot mods. There's a lot of teams where you can go first. I don't freaking care. I'm not intending on going first. I'm intending on going second and deleting you. So I want to encourage you in that because I think speed is something that we get really hyper-focused on. I obviously get hyper-focused on it, but I'm 12 million GP. I can afford to be. But you want to focus on the 6-dots because those change with your account. Those grow with your account. They stay there, and they're all, like, the value that they bring is so huge. I would say that one of the secrets to success on this account is the fact that I have so many 6-dot mods on characters, particularly on the important ones, right? Like you see the diamonds, on a lot of my characters, or you see like this squares, or, where they would have health. That stuff is hugely important to your account and will help you grow more, get more holds in Grand Arena, perform better in territory battles. So I wanted to get that out there for you guys, kind of some mid-game, challenges and kind of how I would solve them. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.